any discussion like that. Definitely want you guys to jump in with questions as we move forward. So we will certainly get there. Right now, we just have a couple of updates. So Shirley's going to bring up our slides. It's so good to see so many of your faces. I so wish we were in person. I hope we can get there sooner than later. It has been a long time. I treasure our meetings together. So many of you guys have become friends over the years, and it has been a rough year. And just want to acknowledge all the work that you guys have done in sticking with this. You know, being there for your students, being there for your communities, being there for education and workforce development here in the state of New Jersey. You know, there's a light at the end of the tunnel for sure. And so I just really, I really thank all of you for all of your work. I think we can bump to the next slide, Shirley. We have of course, jam-packed agenda, as we always do for the STEM Pathways Network. A lot of things going on, and exciting things, and, you know, a terrific guest speaker. So we're just gonna do a quick kickoff. If Shirley wants to put in the chat our Padlet. We did want to get some feedback from our attendees on our priority areas. As many of you know, for the last couple of years, we have been focusing on 4 priority areas at the state level that have been trickling down to our sort of regional and grassroots efforts. But we wanted to get some feedback. I think we've all probably used Padlet before. If you haven't, Shirley dropped the link in. You would just click on this link, and there's a little addition button in the bottom right-hand corner where you can add your comments. And so we just wanted to get some feedback from people on our priority areas, on whether or not you are doing any work in these priority areas that you want to share, or if you know of other people doing work in this area and you want to share some ideas, or if you think that the SPN should start to consider additional priority areas to focus on. So for the last couple of years, we have been in the early learning space. We have been in computer science, workforce development, and teacher recruitment and training. So those are sort of the buckets that we've been focusing on. Would love to hear if you guys have any suggestions in those areas on programming or policy that you think we can focus on, any challenges, or if you have any ideas on additional priority areas that we should consider to really try to leverage the strength of the STEM Pathways Network and our ecosystems here in New Jersey. So I'm just going to give people a couple of minutes. I'm going to just, you know, ask that you guys make sure that you're muted for right now, just so we can eliminate background noise. And I'll just give a couple of minutes for people to start populating, and I'll hopefully be able to bring up some of those ideas. So I'll just give a couple minutes.
So it doesn't let me type in the document. I want to add something.
Hi, Heather. You should just, and when you click on the little plus button, do you get a little thing to do something? Because it looks like other people are able to right now.
Put them under the topic heading. Can you do that, or you just add it?
We're just going to add right now.
Okay.
So you guys can see, you know, the same things that I'm seeing with some of these ideas. Looking at the New Jersey computer science hubs and their services, and there's a great link there. from CS4NJ. Advocating for teacher workforce, bills in motion. There's a teacher apprenticeship pathway educator workforce projections data build. That's interesting. Some more computer science, working on the new Internet of Things. That would be a high school curriculum and a pilot opportunity. Community college, 4-year school pathways with focus areas, including cybersecurity, coding, and drone programs.
I'm gonna do this. I knew I had a
Guys,
post.
just double check, guys, for me if you're muted. We'll try to go through and mute people as well, just until we kind of open up for some questions. So definitely want you guys to sort of keep populating this with any ideas that you have. Thinking about from the SPN perspective about doing maybe a more thorough survey of our members, because it's been a little bit of time, even though, all of these areas are still, I think, there's work to be done, certainly in all of these areas. I would definitely be interested in sort of a better focus in our teacher recruitment and training group. In terms of the policy side, I think there's been a lot of good work done on the communications material development side. There's been work done on the website. There's been a bit of aggregation of information when it comes to professional development. So all of that's been good. And I think the workforce development side, we've struggled with a little bit to really kind of focus on one particular area and kind of make some progress, because it is a very broad area at the end of the day. So we will definitely share this final Padlet out. Please keep working on it as I do just a couple of my announcements. You guys obviously still have time. I guess I didn't formally say that I'm Kim Case. So with the STEM Pathways Network and Executive Director of the Research and Development Council of New Jersey. Just a couple of announcements before we jump into our guest speaker. We have the SPN website. You can go to the next slide, Shirley, when you have a chance. We have the SPN website. Shirley has done a tremendous job on keeping the website up to date and adding materials to the website. It really is quite a repository of information for STEM work here. We are very happy to add more information. So please let us know if there's any additional information. We definitely want to keep populating our STEM Job Center. Right now, it's really sort of a manual situation where we're sort of finding STEM jobs and we're putting them on there. But if you have opportunities that you want to share out, we're happy to place those on our website. There's the STEM data dashboard. We encourage districts to use that as a resource to look at indicators of success that we've developed around STEM education, to check out and see how your district is measuring up. And this is very important to our work, is adding events to our calendar so we can share out with our stakeholders all the things that are going on here in New Jersey. And you can add, I know that STEM month brings, sort of a focus on this, but it's all year long that you can add information. It's in the P to 16 space, it's in, workforce space, policy space. We're happy to add any events to our calendar to really share that information out. So please be sure to use this as a resource. We can move to the next slide, and we are going to just quickly highlight the New Jersey Tutoring Corps program. This was recently launched as an initiative by the Overdeck Family Foundation with the New Jersey Pandemic Relief Fund. It's being facilitated by the College of New Jersey School of Education. And we have Ashley Benkin, who's going to speak after this about sort of the tutoring process that really could be helpful in combating learning loss that has occurred over the last year. So high dosage tutoring is really the recommendation. And this is a step in the right direction for this. I mention this because it's an opportunity for your students, certainly in the state, This program is really being put together right now rapidly to roll out for this summer. So I mention it for your students, but also for either yourself, if you have students in college, other teachers who are interested in being tutors. I suspect that this program is really going to, the success of this program or the impact of this program is going to rely on how many tutors we can really get in place so that we can support as many learners as possible. So this is the website up there, is the website to apply to be a tutor. It gives a little bit more information about the program. I would encourage you to share this out as much as possible. I think that this can be a real nice addition to what districts are doing over the summer to help support our learners. It's for K-5, and it's really focused on math. I don't know if there'll be additional iterations of it or adjustments to it, but that's really the plan right now to move forward. So I just wanted to make an announcement about that. And again, I would encourage you to go to the website and to apply if you have time, or to share it out with other people. The next slide, I think we're jumping right into our guest speaker. We have Ashley Benkin here from Jersey Can. They have put out 2 incredible reports about learning loss and opportunities to combat it moving forward as we are all recovering from the pandemic and from the last school year. So I'm just going to turn it right over to Ashley and thank her so much for being here.
Thanks, Kim. Very excited to be here. And, you know, for the people that I know on the call, it's nice to see you. And for those that I don't, one day, you know, hopefully get to introduce myself in person. Shirley, if we can go to the next slide, I'm going to walk you through kind of, just like Kim said, the 2-part series that we were working on this year to focus on, you know, the impact of COVID and then how we come back from it. Next. So we, just like all of you, you know, as parents of young children at home, you know, we can see the kind of impact that COVID and the school closures have had on our own children. So the first part of this project was really to have an attempt to measure what the projected or possible impact of COVID-19 and school closures was on our students' academic performance. And then the second part was to say, well, we know there's going to be an impact. We don't know to what extent, but predicting that there is an impact, what should we do about it, right? How can we accelerate learning, not focus on remediation because, you know, time is of the essence. So we're right now in the phase of that second part where we're about to release our case studies, working with New Jersey districts that have been accelerating learning at different points throughout the year and are, you know, making plans for this summer and into the fall. Next slide. So we're going to start first with that part 1. This was the data piece. So we looked at and frankly begged as many districts as we could that were using iReady or MAP data. So what we got was a slew of districts that had students in grades 3 through 8. And we wanted to answer these 3 questions. So how had academic growth changed since school shifted to distance learning? 2, based on, you know, the data that these districts have been collecting this year, was there any connection to potential performance on NJSLA if it had been offered in the springtime? And then when we look at the results, like all of you know, data gets even more interesting when you dig into those different details at the bottom. So do these statewide results actually differ when we dig into the demographic groups? Next. So the results were, you know, I think not shocking, but pretty alarming. Again, these were results based on students that had taken the MAP or iReady assessments throughout the first 5 months of the 2020-2021 school year. So what we saw in the data was that on average, students in grades 3 through 8 lost 30% of their expected learning in ELA. And in math, they lost about 36% of their expected learning. So the graph to the right, what that shows is, you know, that dotted line across the top is you expect over a 5-month period of time, you know, 100% of growth. based on wherever your students start. So for those that don't know, MAP and iReady are computer adaptive assessments that start with a diagnostic and give you a target for your student to hit, that based on where they are, here's where they should be within that period of time. So that 100% is based on, you know, all of those individual targets for all of these students. And so essentially 70% of our, our ELA students in ELA hit 70% of their growth. And in math, they hit 64% of their growth in that 5-month period of time. So we know that pre-pandemic, all students aren't the same, all, you know, communities aren't the same, and there were already learning gaps based on, you know, who you are, where you are, you know, the level of income you may have. And so that's why we further drilled down into subgroups. Looking here, you can see that when we looked at students that are identified as economically disadvantaged in ELA, they lost approximately 40% of that expected learning in that 5-month period of time. And then in math, they lost approximately 43% of that expected learning compared to their peers that are not economically disadvantaged. Next, thanks. And when we look just across demographic subgroups, for ELA, our Black students on average lost about 43%, and Latinx students on average lost 37%. In math, our Black students lost 50% of expected learning, and Latinx students lost about 40%. I will say in caveat that the Asian sub-bucket has categorizes all Asian communities. I know there are far more demographic communities here that aren't listed, but we group them together for the ease of just understanding the estimates. So when we looked in, you know, students that have IEPs and students that that don't, our students with IEPs and ELA lost 44% of their expected learning compared to their peers without an IEP. And in math, similarly, they lost about 50% of expected learning compared to their peers without an IEP. And then this was the only kind of bright light. Our ELL, our English language learners, and ELA, they lost about 37% of expected learning, but in math, that was slightly higher. I'm sorry, we'll start with ELA. It was lower than their peers, but in math, they actually performed a little bit higher than their non-ELL peers. And, you know, when we dug into that data with our districts, we said, what are you seeing? What's happening? They said, actually, you know, what we find is that when you make some good growth with ELL students in English and ELA, then the math is ready to go, right? They can access the math in a computer-based assessment, especially in a remote administration, because sometimes it's not the math that they're struggling with, it's actually the reading of the questions or the following the directions. So, so there's some hope there. So that last question that we were trying to focus on was, okay, so we see what's happening in this sampling of data. We understand that, you know, this is based on these 5 months and on these assessments. But when we looked at the MAP exam, so iReady doesn't have this linking study. The MAP exam has published a linking study from NWEA that says, here's how, you know, scores on MAP correlate or, you know, can predict is a strong word, project, estimate, proficiency on the NJSLA. And so this graph shows our 2019 NJSLA scores in ELA and math for grades 3 through 8. So we were at 58% in ELA, we were at 45% in math. And what you see is the greatest drop from 2019 to fall 2020, which, no surprise, that was, you know, a direct result of that a beginning of the pandemic when everyone was scrambling and school closures plus summertime. So then the difference between fall and winter was how much were there continued drops but in that school year. And we saw less, which is great, right? So once our kids were working with our teachers and people were on those platforms or in a hybrid or back in person, you know, all the different modalities that were happening over the course of the first 5 months of our school year, we saw less drop in proficiency. I want to say again, these are estimates of proficiency and our best estimates based on, you know, the available data we saw. The next slide is kind of quantifying this, again, acknowledging that pre-pandemic, we were only at 58% proficiency for ELA. So, you know, pre-pandemic numbers, that's 345,000, almost 346,000 students that were proficient, and still, you know, 250,000 that weren't in grades 3 through 8. So when we look at this graph, it's showing that of those that were proficient, about 100 are, from our study, we estimate that about 143,000 are no longer proficient. And so when you couple that with who wasn't proficient before, and now, you know, the loss in proficiency from those that had hit that bar, you know, the numbers are staggering. We're almost at 400,000 students in elementary for ELA that are, you know, projected to not be on grade level anymore. So the next slide shows the same thing in math. Again, we had worked for years and really hard getting the proficiency up for math. 45% though was where we started. And so the estimated drop here is about 129,000 students that used to be proficient and now aren't. And when you, again, add it with the students that weren't ever actually proficient in 2019, you know, the numbers are even more staggering in math than in ELA, about 437,000. So, you know, I know that every New Jersey educator is up to the task. This is not shocking that, you know, COVID has had a massive impact on our students. I think it's just, you know, extra important to be grounded in these estimates of how hard it is going to, you know, and how much we have to work together to kind of build back. So that brings us to the second part. You know, I was a teacher in a high pre-reduced price lunch school. It is not lost on me that, you know, teachers do not have the time, leaders and school districts do not have the time on a regular year to be able to go and find research and best practices and evidence-based practices without someone else kind of helping or at least culling through it and giving you a starting point. So that's where we led with, you know, in a COVID pandemic year of all times, you know, time is of the essence. And so moving from the data, using that as a like kind of a grounding of our why, you know, we want to make sure that every educator, every district, every school, every network has access to best practices, both national and local, as quickly as possible so that we can accelerate learning. So this framework we released earlier this year, it's, you know, I think like 7-page document that essentially across these 5 categories takes all the best practices that we could find from all the different you know, think tanks, research hubs, all the best evidence-based practices, and puts it in one spot. And then it couples it with policy recommendations, knowing that, you know, we can learn from the pandemic and keep the things that we really liked. So next slide, Shirley. So where we are now is we released this framework, and then we know it's extra important that districts have access to peers, collaborators, others that they can look to say, how did you do this? What, you know, how did you implement it? What money did you use? How did you, what worked when you did it that way? Have you tried it this way? So what we did was we met with as many districts as we could find, which is hard. And again, a pandemic year with everybody tired and ready to be done. But we created video case studies and briefed case studies. So for the videos, there's 2 districts, a charter and a traditional school traditional district that have kind of exemplified or really are the best example of one of these 5 categories. And then in the brief, we pull in some of the other districts who are doing very concrete programs or solutions or curriculum writing or a staffing model, you know, whatever that thing is that they were like, we tried this is how it worked. We'd love to talk to people about it. So instead of up next, I should have said, here's where we are. The first brief, effective resource allocation for equitable systems. You know, the big issue here is how do you talk about really smart spending? I think that's a place as a state, like we can really learn to grow and collaborate around knowing that we have federal funds on a regular basis, and then this unprecedented amount of money that we have now. How do we scale up, right? If you're a smaller district that didn't get over $1 million, and then how do we spend wisely if you are one of those districts that got multi-millions? So this brief highlighted Logan, Paul Robeson Charter, College Achieves of Patterson, and the TCNJ Pandemic Relief Fund is, you know, 4 examples that really narrowed in on how they were going to spend their resources now, applied for grants from the state, and then have created programs that are trying to focus on accelerating student learning. Our next video and brief for student family engagement is tentatively trying to come out next week. We'll see how the Memorial Day crunch fares. But I'll be sure to make sure I send it out. We'll post on social media and I'll send it out to Kim so the whole group can get it. But I'll pause there. Would love to take any questions, hear from the group, and I'm happy to share what I know in my more about tutoring and some of those policy recommendations that we've been talking about and advocating for across the state.
Thank you, Ashley. Thank you so much. We had a naughty little line in that presentation that we want to try and fix. So Shirley is going to see, it had to be something with Google Slides and viewing it because it wasn't in the actual deck. So Shirley's going to see if she can fix that. So we're going to pull it down really quickly, but I want to open up for any questions. I think you guys should have a raise hand function, and that might be the best way to do it because we do have over 50 participants on the call. So do people, if you have a raise hand function, because I'm a host, oh, it's a reaction, Stephanie's telling me. It's under reactions, thank you. I don't get to see the same things that you guys do. Oh yes, here we go. If you wanna do your raise hand, you can just click on that. I have 2 raised hands. See, it's working, the system is working already. We have Padma Arvind. If you want to jump in with your question, you should be able to unmute yourself.
This is a great presentation. Thank you for sharing the data. I mean, the data collection and sharing how students perform in COVID situation is really very important. And I always thought many students didn't have, not every student had the same level of internet access, and also parents are not able to help students to do their homework and help them get through the classes and understand the program, what the teachers are teaching, and that could one of the reason for the poor performance, or at least little bit of a lesser performance, if I wanted to put it correctly, could be the reason. But I also wanted to ask, when students go to classes, sometimes if they don't understand, teachers were able to help them one-on-one. There were also after class coaching, and those things could also help students to perform better. And is that another reason why the performance were going down, especially in terms of math and other things? Or what do you think for the overall performance drop? Can you explain a little bit more on that?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Padma. Great questions. So I think one, there's always tons of variables when we look at student achievement data. I think that's a given in a regular year, this year even more so. A few things, because I know I didn't have a slide on this. One, we actually worked with districts that already had a really strong assessment culture where, their students, their families, their staff, and had been using these assessments for quite some time and knew what to do, right? So if they needed help or they needed access in different ways, that does not ignore that internet access and those kind of challenges didn't interrupt things. Absolutely, 100%. But we actually had to kind of add our own industry kind of algorithm to right size the data because the district actually pre-pandemic performed better than the state average. So we also didn't want the result of this study to reflect only the impact of COVID on high performing school systems, right? That have a strong culture of data and assessment. So, but those are all variables. And that's why I want to always caveat this study with this was a snapshot. This was our attempt to try to say, here's what we think the impact could be. And it's stark and we have to work really hard regardless. After the study, though, what we did was we sat down with every district and we dug into their data. So they got individual dashboards with their performance of their students. And that looks very different than the state, right? Once you drill down. And so one of those schools in particular, they started to think about how have we made sure that our students have access to internet consistently? They were on the cusp of coming back in person or starting their hybrid model, I believe, right in like the January window, February window, as they were finishing that second administration of the iReady exam. And so, you know, that was a question that was already bubbling over for them. And then two, they said, you know what, it's kind of funny. We let our kids take as long as they want when iReady is happening, because whether it's for an IEP, having, you know, those additional accommodations, or typically our students have always just needed more time. So all those variables are totally here. I think that's why Jersey Can and others have been leaning so much more towards high dosage tutoring as a really strong, highly correlated with effective results response for students, is based on all those variables we identified, Padma, and the challenges of data collection during this entire time. I think having that, whether it's through a screen or in person side by side, you know, having that one-on-one 1 to 3 tutoring experience in math and or ELA, or best case both, for our earliest learners is going to be critical to catch them up, knowing that kind of time doesn't stop, right? And we haven't extended the school year, right? We haven't made second grade longer, so that, you know, those second graders that are off grade level have a little more time before they go into third grade. So we also want to be mindful of not piling on, you know, to my second grader's third grade teacher and saying, well, here you go, he's a really good kid, but, you know, he's you know, a month behind, right? And so acknowledging that, I think that's where we see that intersection of really high quality, high dosage tutoring can bridge those gaps and really be partners with our educators going into the school year.
Thank you, Ashley. We have another hand raised. Jenna.
Hi, Ashley. Thank you so much for your presentation. So I am currently the director of the STEM Engagement Center at St. Peter's University. And so my job, I'm basically a one-stop shop for every single STEM student at St. Peter's. So one of the things that I'm really interested to kind of get your opinion on is, how deeply do you think that these statistics are going to affect college preparedness for incoming STEM students? So St. Peter's is a Hispanic serving institution. And if anybody knows what an HSI is, you know, you only need like that 25% marker to be qualified. We're at 50%. So we are at 50% Hispanic and 38% Black and African American. And I actually, funny enough, I actually just did the statistics the other day, and out of like the 632 STEM students that we have on campus, 423 are Pell eligible. So basically with this, that little part that you said, specifically our Latinx students and our Black and African American students, how much they lost. I guess I'm just trying to see, how much do you think I'm going to have to do when they get to college?
So great questions. And thank you so much for being the one-stop shop for all of those students, because I think I mean, on the side and workforce, you know, conversations from the Padlet and all of that, you know, that's incredibly critical for helping those students through college, as well as then saying, and don't you want to be a teacher? Can't we get you in our classroom?
You know, so we have you know, we implemented a particular grant. It's called the NOICE grant. And it gives students like up to like $8,000 a year. I mean, the only issue is the caveat of the NOICE grant is that, like, if you don't teach in a public school system for 2 years after you graduate,
is he going to be able to pull in the driveway?
I hear you.
Yeah. You know, so it's like, even though, you know, it's a really great program, we do have a lot of students that, I mean, and it's any student. Like I went into college thinking that I wanted to major in business, took a business class and was like, wow, I hate this, you know, and then I went into English and education, and then I was like, I don't want to be a teacher. And then I ended up teaching for 3 years. So it's, you know, so we all change our minds. And I think that that's kind of like the hard part of the caveat in specifically for education. You know, because sometimes I think people don't realize how much we love education until we're in it. So, you know, kind of trying to force a kid into a teacher prep program.
Oh, no. Yep. I agree. No forcing.
Yeah. And being like, oh, this is a great, but even sometimes walking in, you know, I mean, I could even say I went to college a while ago, and so it's interesting sometimes to see like what teacher prep programs prep you for and what you actually deal with. You know,
we could talk for hours, Jenna. I could talk about this with you for a long time. So I will have to connect, I promise. The quick answer though is our study focused on grades 3 through 8 because that was the available data we had. Anecdotally from districts I've talked to, middle school didn't do so hot in some places. I think as far as recent graduates, I think that's a toss up, but I mean, knowing that the pre-pandemic learning gaps and the ways, not learning gaps, like access and opportunity gaps.
I think learning gaps are as unfortunate as it is. I think it is an accurate moniker.
Well, it also is access, right? I think we're currently advocating for looking at across the state and actually making projections around how many school districts don't have an AP bio course, right?
Yeah.
And because you don't actually see that in your data, we see how many districts have an AP bio teacher. But if that's 100, and we know we have 800 school districts, does not include high schools, but say out of 800 there were 400 high schools.
Right.
100 AP bio teachers is not enough courses, right, to serve all 400 school districts. So I think that's also part of the problem, is that, you know, you're building on a lack of access to some of that foundational knowledge going into college. And then this year we heard lots of high school students, particularly from low income backgrounds and being Black or Latinx, were having to work. And so, and I don't say that lightly, you know, so I think,
and you know what, that is something too that, funny enough, so building on this conversation, I actually kind of I had to pull in our chair of our bio department and our chair of our chem department and kind of like sit them down and be like, listen, I know that we have an idealistic view of what students should be taking, when they take it, how they take it, who they take it with. I said, but it's something that we really need to consider, is that not every kid comes in at grade level. And that was, as you mentioned in your data collection, like that was pre-pandemic, you know. So now we have kids that are coming in who really probably have absolutely no idea what they're doing. You know, maybe they've been in a virtual learning environment for the last 2 years, and now in the fall, you know, we're expecting them to get vaccinated, to come back and just be ready, you know. I mean, and I know the faculty are ready, because the faculty that they've been doing this for a really long time, but I'm like, you guys have to remember that, you know, when you were getting your undergrad degree, maybe you didn't have to work. Or if you, I remember I had a conversation with one of my old colleagues at a different institution. And, you know, I was like right in my early 20s and she was in like her early 70s. And she was like, I actually went to this school and was able to pay my full year's tuition by working one part-time summer job.
That's the dream, right? Well, I just to put a bow on this, I think
sorry, I just probably could talk forever.
every freshman, you know, kind of orientation, programming, any of that kind of stuff should somehow include some sort of diagnostic screening, right? To understand and meet students where they are, just like you would, you know, 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, and 5-year-olds. I think we have to have this open mind to say, like, there might be kids that thrived and that's awesome, and let them go, right? And they're ready to hit the ground running. But, you know, kind of pre-assuming and putting everyone in a box is the worst case scenario. And so spending time doing that is probably worth the investment.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Jenna. Stephanie has her hand raised. Stephanie, if you'd like to unmute yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much. So my question actually piggybacks off of Jenna's question, in that we work with Jenna's institution and other university partners. So my question is, what can we do with them, since we have we have you here now, and we have your, incredible data and, maybe some, what you've gained in knowledge over these past, almost 2 years or year and a half. Like, what do you suggest that high schools or middle schools do with their local universities in maybe kind of helping to catch up in the gap? What can we build? And, hopefully I'll be speaking to Jenna next week.
I was going to say right away, my first instinct is to just see what a idealistic freshman curriculum is, and to kind of top down it and see where your gaps are. that's just my first thought. But again, even that's kind of hard because again, depending on specifically where in STEM your kids want to go, if they want to go into chemistry, they have to take calculus. If they want to go into bio, they have to take statistics.
Right. And with our, with the magnet program we have in North Bergen, they all take that already. And where I'm concerned also, because now that our program has kind of taken off and we have these wonderful things, we're starting to now reach out to the rest of our population through our program and just kind of like bringing them forward. So Ashley, how can, Ashley and Jenna, anybody else who's here with the university, like it's very easy for me to be able to work with, anywhere from 10 to 70 students, because we have 71 students total in our program. And comparatively, that's a very small number. Now, how do we scale that up to the many students? Well, we're going to have another 40, I think, in the middle school program that we're opening this fall. And I'm okay. I'm prepared to help them with that, with the small programs. But between that, we have 8,000 students in our district, almost 8. I would say 7,000 up in the top 7,000s. So now, how do we become inclusive, right? How do we be equitable?
Yep.
And so
I think so. First step in kind of like designing a plan and moving forward, like you were saying before, I really think should be rooted in data. And so, when you've got 8,000 students, having a kind of baseline understanding of where are they academically, what are their aspirations, what opportunities are they going to have over the summer or not going to have, and then what are the things or the possible ideas that you have bubbling up, right? And you can kind of solicit some of that interest there. So if I were in your shoes, something that I've been talking with a few other universities about was how do we also accelerate exposure of our high school and middle school students to careers and pathways at the same time that we're accelerating their academics, right? I think that was a big pre-pandemic miss, that we wait until, or we let kids that have more affluent connections over their summers, get experience to externships, internships, whatever. So being more intentional and developing programs that build in those work-based experiences, paid or unpaid, right? Ideal is paid, earlier and often. So
and we do both. What I'd like to do in the future, maybe is to get together and, I could talk to you for hours too, because anybody and a lot of people on this call know me, and I talk for hours despite them trying to get out the door anyway. But, we've built that all into our program. There's a required internship, externship by the time our kids are seniors. Some are paid. We just had one of our kids becoming a junior, getting paid over $1,000 to study, one of the STEM subjects. So
then I would push it to also say, how are you leveraging your high school population to then support and serve?
What I think we're missing
your elementary school population though, right? Or your understanding that the value of high dosage tutoring relative to all of the other interventions and solutions that you can implement is by and large the best with the quickest return on your investment.
Right.
Then let's train those high schoolers, right? Who after you've looked at and you said like they're proficient on grade level, they're ready to go, they're moving in these directions, they have the relationship building skills, those kind of skills and the interest. Great, we're going to tap into you. And now you've pulled 100 people and you're going to train them. You're happy to reach out to me. We can talk about training them. And
we have the AP bio students and not just the STEM kids. We have other AP bio, other AP calculus, other AP statistics, National Honor Society, but I don't think we really do. I think this is a phenomenal idea.
Well, and the byproduct that is my sneaky byproduct here is that you are slowly exposing early, high schoolers to what teaching is like. I was a swim coach since I was like 10 years old. And so I knew how to break down concepts, right? But I think that's a way you show it, and it's in a content area that they like. And then sneakily you'll say, Jenna, I have some people here that, might also be great teachers. And, through that really strong partnership that you have and this program right now focused on, accelerating learning. It's
Yes,
it's a
that's
win-win for
exactly what we
everybody.
are. You know, STEM and the soon-to-be STEAM are both accelerated learning.
Yeah, and
Exactly.
another thing that I would
So
suggest
you're
is-
right. We have to take this value that we've built and use it. I hate to say it, I hate to be visual, but that's how I am, as kind of a scoop to scoop up more students to come, or, you know, put them on, you know, the whatever
track.
the belt is,
Yeah.
on the track, on the belt, you know, whatever it is, going through, so that it builds skill and it lifts everybody up. And in fact, it'll lift the whole place up, really.
That's right. You'll have this culture of learning that everyone's excited about, and, you know, cross age groups, you know, that synergy that I think we all really miss after this incredibly challenging year. But what I'm so excited to continue talking to you both. Thank you for your
so
questions.
much.
Wonderful, Ashley. Thank you so much. Stephanie, Jenna, thank you for your questions. Padma, we are right on time. So I think we are, you know, thank you, Ashley, for your time. I encourage people to follow Jersey Can and the work that they're doing. I think it's just tremendous, and it's an incredible asset we have here in New Jersey. Ashley courageously put her email address in the chat, and so she is going to share it out with everybody, so you can contact her for follow-up. And this is not the last time I think you will see her with us. So Ashley, thank you.
My pleasure. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Yes, you too. We are going to move forward with our next slides. I think Shirley tamed the naughty line that was in our presentation, so I think we should be okay. Shirley, I think this is moving to you.
Okay. All right, everyone. I'm Shirley Guzman, the Programs Manager of the Research and Development Council of New Jersey and NJSPN's Project Manager. So I'm going to give you guys a couple of updates. So first of all, we want to thank all of our ecosystem leaders. And here's the entire list of all of our ecosystem leaders right here. So if you're here joining us today, thank you so much for all of your contributions and everything you do for the NJSPN. We really appreciate you all. Okay, so update number one, our I Can STEM Diversity and Inclusion campaign. If you're not familiar with this, we launched this earlier in the fall as a way to kind of bring diverse New Jersey role models and historical and famous role models into a platform where hopefully students could see themselves represented. And here we have our current inductees so far. January, we had Dr. Lauren Madden from the College of New Jersey. February, we had Nasid Gifted, who's a principal at Malcolm X Shabazz High School in Newark. In March, we had Kimberly Cook-Chenault. She's a professor at Rutgers University. April, we had Jason Hoare, who is a senior scientist at Merck Research Labs. And then May, we had Helen Corvaline from Hopewell Elementary School. So these are our role models so far. They were chosen through a nomination process, which we'll be launching for next year in September. And so each month we highlight a different New Jersey role model. And in order to be nominated, you have to be either a woman, maybe you're part of the LGBTQ community if you know someone, and people of color. So if you know anyone, start thinking of who you could nominate come September when we launch the application again. And I did put the QR code if anyone just wants to scan and check out the actual website, which includes a little more information on this campaign. So next we have our hashtag NJSTEM Together Communities Challenge. This was a challenge that was open to all high school students here in New Jersey. We ended up having 65 participating students, which broke themselves into 18 teams, and they represented Burlington, Gloucester, Hudson, Mercer, Middlesex, Ocean, Passaic, and Somerset counties. So we had very good representation throughout the state. The objective of this challenge was that students had to create a solution or design a solution or some sort of communications plan to a problem that their community was facing due to COVID-19. So it was kind of an opportunity to hear what students had to say, what their thoughts are on the pandemic, what issues they were seeing, and how they wanted to address it, which was very interesting. This challenge was sponsored by Siemens. So a special thank you to Siemens. And we had mentoring sessions that were done through this platform, Startup Tribes. And we had representation as far as mentorship goes from BASF, Bristol Myers Squibb, Cisco, Comcast, MindBites, the NJSPN, Nokia Bell Labs, Novartis, Johnson & Johnson, and even Startup Tribes and Siemens. So the finals took place in March 25th, and we selected 3 winning teams, which received a prize of $2,000, $1,500, and $1,000 respectively. So as part of this challenge, we had created a survey through the Parent Institute's Common Instrument Suite, and we had all of the students participate in it. And so here are a few of the outcomes that we received. So out of all of the students, 52% of the students were girls, 52% of the participants were Asian American and Latino or Hispanic. 62% said that English was not their primary language. 65% found a positive change in their 21st century skills after participating. 90% found a positive change in their critical thinking. 86% found a positive change on their STEM engagement. 70% found a positive change on their STEM enjoyment. So they really, if they weren't as engaged before, or maybe they didn't enjoy STEM before, this definitely increased that, which was very exciting. Again, 80%, they found a positive change on their STEM career interest, and 65% found a positive change on their STEM identity. And so more than 40% of students increased their desire for a STEM job in the future compared to before the challenge. So we definitely made an impact. And so we're going to see if we actually continue this program on next year, and we'll keep everyone posted. So now for our NJ STEM month highlights. If anyone, again, QR code, wants to check out the website, please feel free to. Okay. So NJ STEM month, again, is a month-long celebration that takes place in March. And this year, our goal was to impact 30,000 students, but unfortunately, we didn't make that exact goal this year, mostly due to COVID and the pandemic and everything going on. But we are still pleased to say that we did impact over 17,000 learners, and more than 50 events did take place. I want to give a special thank you to New Jersey Makers Day that ended up impacting 10,000 of those learners. So thank you to everyone that participated in that. 10,000 of those students were from Makers Day. Every year we give out mini grants, which are up to a value of $500 and can be used for event enhancements. And so this year we awarded 19, impacting 8 counties. And we also had our STEM Showcase, virtual STEM Showcase book that we launched, which is available on our website. And it features all of our New Jersey STEM ecosystems and 20 other organizations. So if you want to check that out, feel free to visit our website, www.njstempathways.org/njstemmonth. And again, here's a little recap. We had 19 mini grants that were distributed. Out of those mini grants alone, 5,464 students were impacted by them. We had 50 plus events take place, and the total number of learners was 17,344. And we also run a social media, Twitter contest throughout the month of March, where you have to just use the hashtag NJSTEMmonth and follow us for a chance to win. The more you tweet, the better opportunities. So down there below, we have our Twitter winner, Mrs. Kohab, which was a 8th grade STEM teacher at Somerville Middle School. So hopefully next year everyone participates too on our Twitter contest. Okay, and now I think I'm going to turn it over to Kim, who's going to announce our STEM month winners, and then we'll get our presentations from our winners started.
Great, thank you. And I want to thank Shirley. As everybody knows, she is Miss STEM Month, and want to thank her for all of her work in this process. It's a labor of love for sure. I have to say that it started many years ago as STEM Week at the State House. It was me and about 3 college students I would bring to show research projects and, invite legislators, and they would pass through a couple of them. And so obviously that was the start of a much bigger concept that we had our eye on for STEM Month. And Shirley's been really instrumental in making sure that this has gotten as far as it's gotten. And I think there's still a lot more to come for it. I'll also say that I've been speaking with legislators recently about the work that we've been doing. And sometimes I don't remember all of them who have come through our STEM Month event at the State House. And many of them have said to me, oh yeah, I was at the State House, and I go back and I look at the video or pictures and I see them visiting. So it's gaining the momentum that it needs, and we'll continue to push it on. And thank you to everybody who participated this year, and glad to excited for what's going to come next year. So we have an incredible slate of STEM Month award winners. As you can see here, we have various categories of awards. We have asked for submissions and nominations. It's really competitive and hard to decide. There are so many people who are really putting all of their time and energy into such incredible work here in New Jersey. We're just really, really lucky, but we've got some incredible winners. And I think we're going to jump right into their presentations, because that's what's the most important thing really about these awards, is really hearing the work that's being done. So Shirley, I think we can move forward with I think our next slide should be our first presentation. So our STEM Advocate of the Year, Myra, we could say the decade, honestly, for the work that you've been doing here in the state for computer science. All of us have Myra and a couple of individuals to thank for where we are in computer science here in the state of New Jersey. It's really been incredible. And I have such a pleasure of working with her and her compadre, Daryl Dietrich, on the work that they've been doing with CS4NJ. And I just want to thank her, and I hope you guys all write her name down. If anything happens that's positive in computer science, I'm sure she had something to do with it here in the state. And I want to turn it over to her for her presentation.
You're muted, Myra.
Thank you, Shirley. I do that all the time. So thank you, Kim, for that wonderful introduction. I was asked to share some of my work, and so that's what I'm going to do. I'm really, really honored to receive this award. So Shirley, if you could go on to the next slide. So again, my name is Myra Bachrach. That is my email account. Please feel free to email me with anything that I can be of help with. I consider myself a K-12 computer science education advocate, and I believe that all K-12 students in New Jersey and elsewhere should have the opportunity to study computer science. Next slide, please. So some of my computer science education experience: I was a teacher at the Bergen County Academies at Hackensack, and then at Glen Ridge High School. I was very fortunate. Glen Ridge High School is probably the only state in New Jersey that has a half-year computer science graduation requirement for high school. So everyone, all the students in computer science take at least a half year, regardless of where they are academically. There, I was the first Tech Challenge robotics coach for a few years, and at some point, became an adjunct at Kane University, decided to move on and be a computer science lecturer at Kane. I received 2 Google grants while I was there, and one of them was related to computer science education research on supporting ELs in APCS. I had the distinct pleasure of being a consultant for the NJDOE in 2019. And now I am co-founder and co-director of the CS4NJ Coalition, and I'll tell you more about the coalition soon. Next slide, please. So I can't talk about my work without talking about the Computer Science Teachers Association. Even now, I always wear 2 hats. I am a Computer Science Teachers Association person, and I am a CS4NJ co-director. I started my work with them in 2012. I met, Kim mentioned Daryl Dietrich. He really is the leader of computer science education advocacy in New Jersey. I met him in 2012, and we continued our collaboration since. I was a vice president and president of the Northern New Jersey chapter from 2013 to 2015. At the national CSTA level, I became involved in their leadership team in 2014. And even now, I'm an executive committee voting member of the Computer Science Teachers Association New Jersey chapter. In 2014, National CSTA gave me the great honor of being the Advocate of the Year. I was a founding member with Daryl of CSNJ, which was an advocacy offshoot of the New Jersey Computer Science Teachers Association chapters. And as member of that network, I've advocated for some of the laws that led to some of the policy that is in place today, like all high schools offering a computer science course and the computer science endorsement that I know the DOE is working on. Next slide, please. Everything really became so much more productive with our work when Governor Murphy was elected. He embraced computer science for all, convened the Computer Science Advisory Board led by the New Jersey Department of Education. I had the good fortune of being on that board, and we did a lot of work over the first year before COVID came on computer science education in the state. I served on the 2020 Computer Science Standards Revision Committee. And as an NJDOE consultant in 2019, I helped draft the computer science strategic plan that we have today, that we support and we believe is part of our continued work. Next slide, please. So the CS4NJ Coalition, we have always been really fortunate in our friends. And the CS4NJ Coalition, Daryl Dietrich and I co-founded and were co-directors. We really wanted to build the statewide network supporting equitable K-12 computer science education in New Jersey. We had that through CSTA, but we wanted something that was a little bit more formally recognized. We're big believers on collective impact. And I thought we can't do anything by ourselves. We can do a lot with our friends in a network. Next slide, please. So our mission is to promote and support equitable, high quality, standards-based computer science education in New Jersey by leveraging the strength, resources, and relationships of New Jersey universities, nonprofits, and other stakeholders. Speaking of how fortunate we are in our friends, we consider ourselves a program of the Research and Development Council of New Jersey. We had collaborated with Kim prior to forming the CS4NJ Coalition, and that led to us being able to work through the Research and Development Council. We have a 501c3 status as a result. You can find our website. The website we want to have as a central repository of computer science information in New Jersey. And you can find links to many things there, like, for example, the Google group that we support that used to be supported by CSTA. Once the new CSTA website is established, we'll put it there. A link to all the CS hubs and their websites. And of course, our own CSPD week, some information on policies. And so please visit us and go to wherever you need to go from there. You can find us on Twitter and on Facebook as well. Next slide, please. So some of our recent collaborations, we collaborated with Rutgers on planning and organizing the 5th annual Computer Science Summit. We were really happy with how this turned out. We had about 250 people register, and we had collaborations with the DOE Office of Standards. They presented 3 workshops on the standards, as well as the Office of STEM presented on the computer science hubs. And so if you, right, please, that is the link that I had wanted. If you still want to go there and look at some of the presentations and some of the information that was left behind, you might find that useful. Next slide, please. So this is something that's taking quite a bit of our time. I mentioned before how I always wear 2 hats. So I consider myself part of CSTA, and we are collaborating with CSTA on this event. It is generously funded by National CSTA, PSENG, the CMU Computer Science Academy, the Code.org affiliate at TCNJ, Buddha PD, and the Microbit Champions. They are our learning partners as well as funders, either through direct cash donations or in-kind donations by contributing free or reduced cost training so that we can hold this event. We're really excited about it. Please visit the bit.ly link, and if there's anything there that interests you, consider attending. It is on Zoom. So no matter where you are in New Jersey, you should be able to attend. And next slide, I think that's all I have. I just want to thank NJSPN again for this wonderful award. Actually, I don't do anything without my friends and network of CSTA advocates, and of course, Daryl, whenever I'm able to collaborate with the DOE. And I thank everyone and the schools and all the teachers and administrators that are doing work in their own schools to provide computer science education to students in New Jersey. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Myra. That was it's true to herself, where she was never going to not leave you with incredible amount of information and resources so you can jump right in to learn about where we are in computer science if you don't already know in New Jersey, and then also providing the additional resources. And I encourage you to check all of that out. We have a very nice award for you, Myra. My understanding, it's going in the mail any day now, so it will get to you. So next on our list is a friend of mine, Kauser. We've known each other for some time now, because when you get into STEM in New Jersey, you just start connecting to all these people. And Kauser was one of my first people to connect with. But we are very proud to honor her with the STEM Civic Leadership Award. She is the professor and head of civil engineering at Rowan University. She's an incredible asset for her students and for the institution in the state, really. So I want to turn the program over to Dr. Kauser Jahan.
Thank you, Kim, and thank you, NJSPN, for giving me this award. I'm truly humbled by the recognition. And for those of us who are involved in STEM education, we know that the needle actually moves much, much slowly than we would like it to move. But because we are invested in the future of the nation, we all give our very best. So I'm going to present about opportunity or a program that I have developed, and feel free to use this program if you want to adopt it. It's called Engineers on Wheels. So I would like to get my slides. So when I started at Rowan University as a civil engineering professor in 1996, I immediately noticed that the classrooms were very not diverse, not only in terms of gender, but other underrepresented students. And I knew that we as a collective group had to do something to start changing the environment, and also trying to do something to attract more diverse populations into engineering. A number of programs were established then, attracting women into engineering or for middle school girls. We ran many workshops for teachers because teacher education in the 90s was also important to kind of make sure that everybody understood what engineering careers encompassed. And so we ran engineering clinics for teachers, our ECT program. And one of the observations by 1999 that I started noticing is that many of the school districts were unable to afford to come to Rowan University with their students to showcase or see what we were doing. And that is when we decided that if we had a mobile outreach program where we the instructors and our students could visit the classrooms, do some activities, talk about engineering, not only civil engineering, which my profession is, but talk about all types of engineering and get kids excited at a very early age, elementary school, middle school, high school, maybe we would start making a dent. So we received funding from the Edison Edison Venture Funds or Martinson Foundation, and we titled our program Engineers on Wheels. And in the pandemic, of course, this became a problem because this was a program where we would physically visit the school. So we actually renamed it Virtual Engineers on Wheels. And now we have the ability to do some interactive synchronous learning with the school districts. Next slide, please. So some of the objective, like I said, in the early 90s, when I became a faculty, we recognized that in order to make sure that the United States does not lag behind the world in STEM innovation, technological innovation, the results in performance of math and science, we heard about it earlier today. These were some of the reasons we felt that we had to come up with some innovative ideas to bring engineering into the classroom. Next slide, please. So our overall objectives for the Engineers on Wheels program was primarily to provide exposure to engineering careers much early on, not wait till high school, but elementary and middle school, not only to the students, but educators, guidance counselors, whoever is in the structure of the school districts, and make sure that they are somehow able to convey to their students through the curriculum that engineering is a viable profession for many, and kind of also break away from some of the stereotypical comments that we hear about engineering, that you have to absolutely love math and science. We have kind of changed that phrase by saying you have to be good in math and science, you know. And I use this phrase, and many people love it, that when I want to put a picture on a wall, I need a hammer and a nail. I don't have to love my hammer or my nail. I just need to get the job done. And that seems to resonate well with the students and educators. Next slide, please. So some of the highlights of our Engineers on Wheels program was that we have a mechanism at our Rowan College of Engineering. Every Tuesday and Thursday, we have a 3-hour block that is reserved for students to work on a project. And since we developed this project, we have a team of students who sign up for the project, and every Tuesday and Thursday, the students travel to area local schools to promote careers in science and engineering. And when I say promote, we are not doing PowerPoint presentations. We actually have hands-on activities. We work in teams with the students. We plan with the teacher ahead of time, figuring out what is going on in the classroom, what are they learning, whether it's 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, and then we offer activities that kind of complement what they're already learning in the classroom. We also are aware that school districts do not have a large, budget, and so we made sure that our activities were simple, cost effective, and many of them were gender sensitive. So you were, kind of attracting women and other minorities into engineering by showing them examples that were relevant in their lives. And also we did not limit it to only civil engineering. We pretty much talked about different major branches of engineering: biomedical, electrical, mechanical, and chemical also. And we also try to work with the teachers to make sure that we're looking at what the New Jersey state standards are for science and math, and then map out our activities. Next slide, please. So like when we physically were doing this, we would make arrangements with the schools to bring up our vans close to the classroom or somewhere in a parking lot where the students could come out if the weather permitted us to do so. And we would set up many, many different types of activities, and the students in mini groups would not only see select demonstrations, but they would actively participate in the activity. One of our most popular activities is actually making lip gloss, which seems to be extremely popular with both boys and girls, that they never thought that making lip gloss could be something that an engineer might do. Next slide, please. So a typical trip is that we plan with the teacher ahead of time. We reach out to the area school districts. Now this of course there's a time limit here. The students have 3 hours, so they have to travel and come back. And we work a lot. We plan ahead to make sure that we have everything in place so that we have our act together when we are working in a classroom for 50 minutes or 150 minutes, depending on the time that the teacher and the school district provides us. We also sometimes end up going and working with the same class multiple times over 5 weeks, 10 weeks, depending on what the schools allow us to do. And that actually is extremely helpful. Instead of making one random visit, the reinforcement going back and back is extremely important. The other aspect of the program that is very important and has a major impact is having the engineering students be the leaders. Not only do they learn the value of mentoring and becoming STEM mentors when they graduate, the children in the classroom actually connect to them very well. And many times our students are actually alumni of the school they're visiting. And that actually makes a very strong connection with the children who participate in this. Next slide, please. So these are just some of the images. We, like I said, do many activities. Our environmental engineering activities are extremely popular. Drinking water treatment. So this is one in a local middle school. Next picture, please. So I have a couple of images. And so here's me making lip gloss. Lip gloss is almost like chemical processing is always like cooking. So the kids do get interested. Here we are doing some bridge building, also using kits to teach students how to put circuits together. Next slide, please. A human gyroscope, and like I said, we actually bring our vans close, and sometimes the students are able to come outside the classroom and watch some of the activities. Next slide, please. And here's one I did. I think this capture, we had a professional photographer come, and this is a beautiful image of where we are actually showing students, teaching them about vapor pressure. And this is just a mixture of water and rubbing alcohol. And when you pressurize it, and you can see we have some bike pumps, you can see the alcohol kind of dissipating in the atmosphere, and it looks like a fog, and you can see the reaction of the kids. And so our our goal is always to have very visual, short experiments that make an impact on the kids, where they kind of go like, wow, I did not think engineers were involved in something like this. Next slide, please. We also encourage students into project-based learning. And even though the egg drop is a really old activity, the kids actually love it because it helps them work in a team, and they have to go through a challenging design project, trying to devise a mechanism that will allow them to drop an egg. And we kind of pretend, we give them a story that maybe you have to give some very delicate materials that need to be delivered to a community, and you have to think about all these design constraints. In this pandemic, we talked about vaccines, and what if you had to give and deliver vaccines somewhere where you can't really physically access the land. And so we changed the storyline during the pandemic, but this is a very popular activity. Kids love doing this activity because they're working in teams, and it's competitive also, whose project is the winner project. Next slide, please. And so I just want to end by saying that in this pandemic, one of our learning goals was that we learned that we don't really have to physically go to every school. Kids actually even loved the virtual interaction that they had with us. We would plan ahead with the school district that we were going to we would send them a Zoom link. And what would happen is the kids in the classroom in their school would do the same activity while our engineering students sitting in our STEM lab wearing masks were doing the same activity and watching, you know, the successes or unsuccesses. And that really worked well, even in a remote environment. So we actually learned during the pandemic that we can actually continue engineers on wheels. We always do not have to physically go into the school district. And this fall, we are going to be aggressive because this allows us to increase our reach throughout the state of New Jersey and not be limited to South Jersey schools close to Rowan University. In the past, we've had a number of companies or foundations support our project. And we also have our College of Engineering students and faculty from education who also help us assess. There's a lot more than just going in and doing activities. And I'm very thankful that I was able to do this. We have completed our 12 years and many more to go. If there's anyone here in the audience who's interested, my email is jahan@rowan.edu. Please feel free to get in touch with me. If you want to support the program, please feel free to provide us support. And thank you so much again for this honor. I'm truly humbled with this recognition. And the award is not only for me, but I see it as something that should really go to my students who work diligently. And I'm glad that I'm able to mentor the students so they can also become active STEM mentors in their career. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think this is an incredible model for all the reasons that you mentioned. And it's certainly, I hope that people consider replicating it in the work that they do. I mean, just thinking, and maybe because Donna Custard is at the top of my screen, about companies where they could all do the same thing, right? Like you can have all these companies can throw some educational materials and get employees to sign up for shifts. How cool would that be?
And I do want to add this, that we have not like copyrighted or anything the title Engineers on Wheels. So University of Florida has this, and they started 2 or 3 years after I initiated the program. Our program was nationally recognized by VPAN, but like I said, it's cost effective. If children, really don't know much about engineering, even to this day. They're getting better because of STEM education. They can kind of say some general sense of what engineers do. But again, just doing some simple activities like the lip gloss activity, that's like a big hit because there's not a single kid out there who actually thinks that, lip gloss making is something that a chemical engineer might do.
Right. I definitely see that. We're going to keep moving forward just so we are going to stay on time because I know there's a lot of comments we could make. If there are questions, guys, please feel free to throw them in the chat box, or we'll leave a little bit of time at the end of the session. But I want to move to our STEM collaboration of the year. I really like this award a lot because it really shows what happens, what you can accomplish working together in a very intentional manner and creating partnerships and really focusing on learners. So the STEM collaboration of the year is given to the Jersey City Free Public Library, the Liberty Science Center, and the Jersey City Public Schools Department of Special Education. So we do have a representative here today from the library, and Kate Davis, I think you are with us.
I am.
Wonderful.
Hello, everybody. It's such an honor, and especially getting to learn more about all of the other award winners. Like, wow, what are we doing here? So thank you so much. And obviously, collaboration is a wonderful thing. The power of partnership, you're able to reach so many more people and have a much greater impact. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, but I'd like to introduce the team. I see a couple of them with us. So I'm Kate Davis. I'm from the Jersey City Free Public Library. I think Kara and Jennifer are with us if they want to say hi.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. Yes. And Candace, so actually the program that we collaborate on is going on right now. So I think Candace is over there at our Fun Fridays event.
She is.
But I have to say, like, this team is great. We've been able to do so many great things, and we were able to invite the Liberty Science Center to collaborate with us on this Fun Fridays event. So if you go to and Mary McDonald and Rosa Catala, who are, I think, also busy right now, but with us at heart, represent the Liberty Science Center. And if you go to the next slide, we'll talk a little bit more about Fun Fridays. So Jennifer and Kara have been instrumental in facilitating Fun Fridays. The Jersey City Free Public Library presents about 45 virtual programs a week through Facebook, Zoom, YouTube, but this one is definitely our most attended program. Our Zoom can facilitate 1,000 participants, and we often reach that. The only reason, without a doubt in my mind, that we've been able to do that is because of Jennifer and Kara and that power of collaboration. Fun Fridays happens every Friday at 10 a.m. all year long, every school day on Friday. And we are able to have thousands of students attend, and Kara and Jennifer and Candace share the events with the teachers, and their teachers bring the whole class. They know in advance what the activity is, so they can incorporate it into the curriculum and get ready for it. And it's just something exciting. I think definitely everyone is tired of being stuck at home, especially kids. And so this like virtual field trip has become really important, I would say. And it's also been helpful for the library realizing the needs of the community. Through Kara and Jennifer, we realized that a lot of students didn't have access to school supplies. So when we were doing certain activities, they couldn't participate. So we were able to work with principals to find students at need and distribute 350 school supply kits during our National Library Week. And you can see we've been able to collaborate with lots of amazing groups and organizations through this. Jennifer and Kara, would you like to add anything? No. Yeah, it's just been really, really great.
It's been great so far. So we look forward to it every Friday. Candace played a huge role in getting it started as well. So unfortunately, she couldn't be here, but she does want to give her thanks for even running the program with us, Kate, and the success of the program.
Yeah, which again, only because of collaboration and that network support. If you go to the next slide, then we can focus on, I see we have a big Mary McDonald fan. We are also huge Mary fans and Rosa fans. So part of our February Fun Fridays was incorporating Black History Month and Heart Health Month. So we focused on Black cardiologists. And then Rosa facilitated a heart and soul program that they usually do at the Liberty Science Center, but they were able to facilitate it into a virtual program. And if you go to the next slide, we have a little clip of Rosa and some of the activities that she did. And it was just really, really incredible. Miss Rosa was amazing. She had some great dance skills that she brought to us, and the kids had so much fun. We danced, we laughed, and most importantly, we learned. And that's what was so amazing about this program in particular. I mean, we've done a lot of programs. This was definitely one of my favorite. And I think it really engaged students with the sciences in a way that affected them a lot, and in a way they haven't been able to for a really long time. And hopefully planted some STEM seeds for the future. Would you like to add anything, Jennifer and Kara?
So when we collaborated with the Liberty Science Center, it was important for us to take their established Heart and Soul project and transform it to mold into what we were looking for, which was heart health and, like Kate said, Black History Month. And through the collaboration, they were really able to make it perfect for us. So sorry, you guys can't get the same assembly that we had.
I know we tried to find some video to share, but unfortunately we didn't record it to distribute it. And but it was just phenomenal. Mary and Rosa were, like Jennifer said, so helpful, listened to all of our things and incorporated everything that we requested. And again, I mean, that was one of our programs that maxed out. We were getting emails like we can't get in. So I think through the cycles, that one had over 1,200 registered viewers. Sometimes teachers share screens, so who knows how many students that actually was able to reach. But again, it wouldn't have happened certainly if just the library had run a program like that. And with all of us coming together, I think we were able to have something really fun and exciting for kids to engage with STEM in a really, really powerful way. So we're really lucky to be part of that team. And hopefully we can collaborate in the future. There's so many things I'd love to do, some engineering and computer science programs. I'll type my email address, and hopefully if you want to attend a Fun Fridays with us or some library programming or school programming, there's so much great work going on. It's really, really wonderful to see what everyone else is doing and have a network to tap into it. So thank you so much. Like I said, I'm honored to be here with Jennifer and Kara and the rest of our teams that are busy at work. It's just an honor to win such a great award, because collaboration is just so important.
Thank you so much, Kate and Kara and Jennifer, for being here today, and to your team members who are in the trenches and couldn't be here, but thanks for them as well. I also agree, like the collaboration side is incredible. And I think that it's hard sometimes for people to kind of make the leap into connecting and making that collaboration or putting it together rather. And so I really love what you guys put together, and I hope it does inspire other members on the call to reach out to parties or stakeholders like this to see how you can support one another and what you can come up with together. So this was very exciting. I think we're going to move forward to our next presentation. We have two more for our award winners. We have next our STEM Corporate Champion of the Year. It does go to Siemens, and we have our fearless representative here to accept the award, Rob Boyagieff.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? I appreciate the nice introduction, Kim. I do have a few slides. Shirley, thank you very much. So really what inspired this idea, I think that the privilege was all mine. I got a chance to work with Shirley, Pavi, and Kim to kind of come up with this community-based design challenge. So we all came up with this, and it was really cool because just kind of going on the theme, what we were talking about today, like a lot of the early years and the STEM skills, you really need those fundamentals, right? We can't ignore the fundamentals, but how do those fundamentals get applied, for maybe an older learner, maybe someone in high school or college. And really this is all about kind of leveraging our communities. They're great collaboration tools when you look at the fact the assets in the community around technology or transportation or around healthcare. Unfortunately, and one more slide, please, Shirley. Unfortunately, we're seeing a pace of innovation that it's so rapid now that there are communities that are being left behind. So we have to be mindful of that, as well as there may be some skills that are being left behind. So if we look at the pace of innovation and these themes around globalization, urbanization, demographic change, and what you see here, and digitalization. These are skills now where I think we have to be very careful, where if we're not teaching these skills equitably, there are going to be left behind. We hear that with the digital divide. So what this theme was about was really getting high school students to look within their community and start understanding what ails that community and come up with a solution. And it was accelerated by COVID. We had a COVID pandemic theme, but these problems aren't going to go away whether COVID, whether pandemic hits or not. So we wanted to do that, and really the high school students, I was very privileged to work with a few of them. they just had brilliant ideas. I mean, these are skills, they took all of those STEM skills and they started applying it to a real world project. So there was a lot of collaboration, there was a lot of critical thinking, there was a lot of data science behind their projects. Those were some of the criteria. And I just want to talk about what you need. So maybe to kind of get this framework and this idea off the ground. So maybe next slide, Shirley, please. So, the big theme is an ecosystem. You need an ecosystem, but not just a STEM ecosystem. But what we found is you need an ecosystem where industry, higher education or academia, as well as community come together in working in this design or the community inspired design challenge. Fortunately for Siemens, like that's very much core to us, and our businesses are organized around that model. So that's how we work as an organization. And the second thing you need, and next slide, please, Shirley, is you need technology, not just for technology's sake, but what is it going to do? How are you going to harness technology to for social good? So that's a lot of the students in this design challenge did that. For instance, one of the teams in Hoboken were working with small business owners, restaurants, for example, and started to think about how they can get their businesses up and running quicker through increased ventilation. So that was a tech play right there. There were apps for awareness and whatnot that some of the students developed. And what we really wanted to encourage is like, don't stop there. If you have a prototype, continue that. Don't just put it on a shelf. Continue it throughout your academic career. And I really felt like some of the students, you can kind of see who would do that. Some of the students, in talking to them and when they presented, I can see them taking this into an applied research field if they go into a 4-year program. And I know Rowan, it's kind of what Kauser was talking about. It's a lot of the engineering clinics at Rowan do that. They're working on real world challenges. So I thought that was really cool. And then one more slide, and I'll try to wrap things up. When we think about technology, a little bit of a commercial for Siemens here, so I apologize. But, I think what's happening is like this digital transformation is becoming so like ubiquitous, like students are hearing about it. But what I think you really need to get this off the ground is again, that industry experience, that internship. So we were encouraging some students to apply for internships within our own backyard. We have an R&D park in Princeton. We have two major distribution centers in New Jersey around healthcare. So I want to connect some of these students with internships to work on these challenges, obviously. And the one thing I wanted to just, and I'm going to wrap up in a second here. These ideas of communities of the future is a big area of focus for the federal government right now and the National Science Foundation, where every one of us can kind of take advantage of that, because your own students, or if you're a higher ed professor, we're working with Rowan on one of these federal NSF grants where we're actually using the campus as a living lab to work on some of these smart and connected technologies and models. And we're actually pulling it into Glassboro as well as the local schools to get this off the ground. One of the themes today was collaboration. I really feel like that is the way we're going to kind of better prepare our communities, because the applied research has to have, like, it actually has to have an implementation piece. So in that case with Rowan, the potential could be $1.5 million to kind of frame all that out. And then that's where like public-private partnership comes into, and there's an intended business model there to actually implement that by leveraging the federal dollars. We're hearing a lot about Joe Biden's infrastructure plan, and I just think this is really coming at us pretty quickly. And I want people on the call to start thinking about like how do you collaborate with maybe some of your higher ed community or some of your industry partners to try to go after this, because that is a much more sustainable model versus just grants, just standalone grants. So that's was one of the things we wanted to take away from this design challenge was, you know, students being aware of like how they would go after these applied research. Maybe they, you know, they work with their faculty advisors and go after that once they enter into their undergraduate or graduate career in university. So I know that's a lot, but I really think this program can continue many years. We don't see this as a one and done. I think it's going to grow and evolve, and we want to stand behind it from, you know, for a whole generation and see where those prototypes eventually get commercialized, because how cool would that be? So I'll end it at that. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much, Rob. Yeah, I mean, Rob has been incredibly supportive. We're glad he still takes our emails and phone calls at this point. We definitely leveraged him as best as we could in the process of putting together this STEM Together Communities Challenge. And he just like I had mentioned, Pavi in the chat, who was, you know, the visionary behind the challenge, it took it to a whole nother level. Like being able to have Rob's advice and counsel in the process really made us make the challenge a terrific one, especially for the first year and given the circumstances of it. So thank you, Rob. Our next speaker and our last but not least winner for STEM Month is the STEM Educator of the Year, Janine Landfear. She is a supervisor of math and science at North Brunswick Township Public Schools. She's been a supporter of the SPN for quite some time, and has done incredible work. And we want to congratulate Janine for her award and give her an opportunity to share her work.
Thank you, Kim, for your introduction, and Shirley as well for all your work promoting STEM in New Jersey and in North Brunswick. So good morning, New Jersey STEM Pathways members, guests, and fellow awardees. I am deeply honored to be included in such an amazing group of STEMmies. Again, my name is Janine Landfear, and in 2014, I made a transition to the North Brunswick Township Public Schools to focus on two things: making a difference for a more diverse group of students, and doing so using math and science. I've been asked to share what happened next. The commonly used metaphor of algebra as the gatekeeper is included in this passage from New Jersey math standards coming all the way back to 2007. The impacts on the STEM pipeline have been well-known extensive problems. As educational professionals feeding the STEM pipeline, we continue to be challenged by overall student achievement in math and science, as well as access and equity for the advanced coursework that is needed for success in STEM fields. Middle school is a pivotal time for sustaining student engagement in STEM. Algebra success, and particularly exposure for rigorous algebra in 8th grade, is such a strong predictor of college and career success in all areas, and ultimately economics for equity, that it has been called a civil right. Our North Brunswick community is a vibrant one with students from all walks and talks of life. The challenge has been what was called an achievement gap. We were identified as a focus school, and algebra was indeed a gatekeeper. Next slide, please. All curriculum supervisors undertake a continuous improvement process for teaching and learning. And on arrival, I sought to continue to elevate our instructional program for students at all levels of proficiency. Targets included ensuring alignment of instruction to rigorous standards, addressing instructional time, using hands-on, minds-on approaches to mathematics and science as shown, conceptual understanding over rote memorization, and real-life application. This approach helped us build up the ramp to the gate. Feeling the sense of urgency, I also sought to quickly widen the gate to identify and let more students through so that algebra could begin to transform from a gatekeeper to a gateway to STEM. This student-centered approach, in lieu of a criteria-centered approach to placement, is labor-intensive. It is also the work of systemic change that challenges mindsets and unintended institutional barriers. The teamwork that was involved provided quick successes for us and is ongoing. I'll highlight the initiative which paired algebra-based physics concurrently with the study of algebra in the 8th grade. This interdisciplinary approach served to reunite these disciplines that were originally developed together and to support achievement in both content areas while providing sense and meaning to the students for their study. Next slide, please. A research-founded strategy to improving student achievement is strengthening the homeschool connection. I shifted our math and science parent academies from a parent lecture style approach. These events tended to be very poorly attended, to an event with student learning at its center. Students were invited to provide demonstrations of their learning for their parents and the community. Informational sessions were also provided, but were often embedded within these interactive sessions. A key element was the hook experience. For example, in the picture on the right, the family is seated inside a portable planetarium, waiting for a star show to be presented by one of our teachers. This provided access to some of the types of experiences that our students might not be able to go outside of school to experience. Next slide, please. In the first 3 years, we made strides in participation rates and inclusivity. This chart compares subgroup participation as a percentage of the whole group of students participating in a full year high school level terminal algebra course in 8th grade. Note that some subgroups had 0 access prior. That is represented in 2 areas where you only see the second bar in red. These were students with educational accommodation plans, such as IEPs and 504s, and students who are or formerly were English language learners. Not shown is our second level of acceleration, just of note, which is high school geometry. I have focused the slide on algebra, but in summary, 14% of the 2014 8th grade class was enrolled in either algebra or geometry, and by 2017, 43% of the class had access to high school algebra or geometry. The remainder of the class was achieving in a grade level course that had been enriched with additional algebra content from high school. Moving forward, our students have continued to become more diverse. Through much hard work across the teams of administrators and teachers, we were also released from focus school status. However, the progress in math and science acceleration plateaued to be between about 43 and 48% of the 8th grade class enrolled in a high school level course. And the remaining students had just not been gotten to the readiness point for success in algebra, despite the additional resources that we were employing to service these students. Digging in illuminated that it is not just an access issue, it is an equity issue. Not just an underserved, I'm sorry, I'm a little passionate about this. Not just an underserved or underachievement issue, and it's not the student's fault, and it's not their family's fault. It is a long-standing and broad-reaching opportunity gap. It was time to think harder and deeper about our populations as not just being economically disadvantaged, but as recent times have certainly highlighted, burdened communities, many times with generational trauma. New approaches to learning and family relationships with schooling were needed to reach and teach all students at all levels. What gate needed to be dismantled? What bridge needed to be built? These are big questions for all of us as citizens and neighbors, and we need to continue to engage and grapple with these questions. Clearly, I'm a little passionate about this. We're ready for the next slide. My passion is focused on the math science piece of the puzzle and leveraging the huge opportunities in STEM for our students. In that role, I had a vision in mind, and in 2019, an amazing thing happened that provided funding to actualizing a first step. Title funds were reallocated and expressly designated for STEM. This funding was a program gate opener so that I could build new access points, a new gateway to STEM. The Amped On Algebra program was developed to engage struggling high school students originally. I saw an opportunity to use its premise to assist middle school students in stepping up to algebra through providing engaging, hands-on, and interdisciplinary learning opportunities to provide sense and meaning to the study of algebra. The program originally focused on other making skills, but I wanted to provide students with future-ready STEM-related making skills. The grant provided for extensive startup costs, including teacher development and training, also 3D printers, and other STEM-related equipment. Central to my vision was that the course must include an inclusive, heterogeneous mix of algebra students with a goal to develop a community of learners working together with varied gifts, talents, experiences, and approaches to solve problems, build their business that they develop through the program, and model our goal for our community. The course non-traditional scope and sequence changed used the data from the students' own business activities as the data to study algebra. Students were highly engaged and writing profit equations quickly. We were fortunate to be selected for this State House STEM Showcase in the spring of 2020, which due to COVID became the virtual showcase flipbook. Next slide, please. That same month, we received a New Jersey STEM Month grant to fund an off-Broadway science program to be presented in our own building as the hook for another Parent Academy informational session with student demonstrations of learning. You can see some of the pictures from that there. We were very fortunate to have squeaked that event in just time, just a few days before COVID closure. And so we were able to hold our March 2020 Math and STEM Madness event. Next slide. When we received 2020 STEM funds again, we expanded the AMPed approach to 7th grade. I also sought to multiply gateways by leveraging engineering and coding. We already had programs in these areas, but scalability is an issue. We also needed to provide access for students receiving academic support in their schedule, and we needed to increase exposure to generate the interest from the students. We added a data science course that used coding as well as added coding directly into the academic support program. We redeployed math and science teachers on staff in order to do so. The grant provided the training and supplies to make this happen. Next slide, please. Before we knew it, it was another March and more madness, only now with COVID. And so our event was remote. We launched a virtual Parent Academy to reach families at home and to make resources available 24/7. We again had 2 programs highlighted in the virtual STEM showcase with increasing emphasis on college and career ready experiences. Our engineering challenge course was indeed a challenge during remote instruction, as well as was our AMPed hands-on making course. Our teachers rose to the challenge, as you can see in the new flip book. Next slide, please. We are all truly working in a connected web. I'd like to pause and salute Myra, my colleague and fellow honoree, for her key part in supporting computer science for all. Because of the success of this advocacy, New Jersey has now made computer science required for all middle schoolers, which is raising the bar for students at all levels. Particularly, research shows that by engaging first in the discussions that are now a part of the standards, such as impacts of computing, ethics, and climate change, students in underrepresented populations will develop interest and a STEM identity and sustain study in STEM fields. As we prepare for CS for All in New Jersey, I am engaged in continuing to infuse coding as an interdisciplinary tool and a gateway to STEM and computer science for all students, while continuing to expose students to college and career readiness opportunities in instruction. Next slide, please. I hope you see that as educators, we usually make the most impact when we are passionate, and I'm going to get a little personal next. I'm going to rewind the clock. I didn't start with where my career began. I am a Jersey girl. You can see on my pathway 2 gold stars that are pivotal moments on my pathway to STEM education. In algebra in high school, as I entered high school, I hit a speed bump, and I had never had that experience in school before. My parents had experienced their own barriers to academic opportunity in their lives. They had worked to provide opportunities to me that they did not have, but they could not help me with my math and science work. My algebra teacher, Mr. Thomas McNamara, met with me before school a few times, and we fixed it up. I don't remember what my hiccup was, but just like the saying, I never forgot how he made me feel. Mr. Mack told me that I was a mathematician. Later, I had a math teacher who had computers in the back of the room, and I learned how to code. 2 defining outcomes resulted. I became a National Merit Scholar, and Rutgers selected me as a Presidential Merit Scholar. First generation college student, done, check. Second, I got a part-time job as a programmer before I turned 18 that carried me through college to a career in computer science in educational assessment. The fire and passion for education was lit that later called me back to the classroom as a teacher. These educators changed my STEM pathway, and through their work have multiplied their impact. Next slide, please. So I love math and science, but STEM education is ultimately a strategy for relevance, a hook to students' technology-driven world to help them find a way to use STEM as a tool in their own area of passion and to give them a voice. My passion is making a change for everybody's children, to pay forward what New Jersey has done for me, and to give students the tools they need to move forward in a world that is full of problems to be solved. Yes, my students face more challenges than I did, but I can stand up for my students for equity and access, and will continue to work hard to add more gateways and dismantle barriers. Middle school is a key time for developing students' STEM identity, but there are 301,071 middle school students currently in New Jersey. I hope that you will join with me to multiply the impact in working to reach each and every one of these students. We need to provide the highest quality education for everybody's children. It is their civil right. Next slide, please. I would be remiss in not emphasizing that these changes require the work of so many who have stood with me and lent their support to the vision. Thank you, Shirley and Kim and the New Jersey STEM Pathways Network for this amazing opportunity to share my passion with you today. I hope that you understand it is, I'm wearing my heart on my sleeve at this moment. And thank you for the recognition. Thank you to the North Brunswick community for being collaborators in this work. I am fortunate to have a wonderful staff of educator STEMmies to work with. The teachers have done awesome work in implementing these shifts and programs. In addition, I would like to call out Dr. Zykowski, Janet Chiroka, and Amy Rumbo for key administrative support in making change. And finally, my other passion. I thank my family who continue to inspire me and who still answer the call when I say, can you do this with me? It's for my kiddos. As I wrap up, I would like to thank you for your time in listening today. The work is not done. I have a lot more ideas in mind, so watch out. I might be calling any one of you next and saying, come on, let's make this happen. It's for our kiddos. Continue to be safe and well, everyone. Please salute the monumental work of teachers whenever you can, and thank you for giving me this time.
Thank you, Janine. Thank you so much. I think there were some great comments in the chat. You know, your heart is our heart, and there's just so much passion. And it's really why I love what I do, is to get to meet people like you and to try and support people like you, and continue to drive the work. And as you said, it's about the kiddos at the end of the day. And we would have much more to talk about. I'm a first generation college student. I went to Rutgers, and I have so much of the same feelings that you do about this work, and started my career as a middle school social studies teacher in the South Bronx. So I have a lot of the same feelings that you do. And I'm so thankful that we started these awards and are able to hear the stories of all of our award winners today. It's really such an incredible pleasure to see the work that you're doing. And New Jersey and our students and our parents and our communities are so lucky to have you all here and honor your commitments and your achievements. And so we're so glad we can play a very small part of a role in that, in doing our STEM Month awards. I think, Shirley, do we have any questions, I guess? If there are any hands that are raised, I know we're coming to the conclusion of our time here. Oh, we're right on the dot, actually. Coming to the conclusion. If anybody has any questions, though, I'm happy to take any questions. If you're able to, Shirley, it was requested, or Janine, for your email address, if we can drop that in the chat, that would be great. I'm just going to look and see if we have any questions. You guys did terrific presentations, so I think a lot of things might have been answered. I will just give a second, though, if people, before we leave and we don't get together again till September, are there any announcements from any of our organizations? Are there any programs or ideas that want to be shared out before we move forward? And you can also put those in the chat. And the last thing I will say is we do have a short survey, and Shirley will share that out with all of our attendees so that we can get feedback on how we can continue to improve this. This is going to be a hard one to beat, though, this meeting. So thank you guys really just so much. It was so nice to see all of you, even though it's virtually. Thank you guys again for your time. I hope you all have somewhat add some normalcy to your summer and really can try to, have some fun, and hopefully we all have some time to move forward. And we will be in contact. You will hear from us, and we will be back together again in September. So thank you all. Have a wonderful, I hope, long weekend, and we will be in touch. So thank you.